Yeah, that was really how it felt, was just like the weight being lifted. Like, I had this feeling, and it was just, for literally the day I was diagnosed, every single morning when I woke up, I would have just like a couple minutes of being like we're still doing this. Like this is real. And it was just that complete flip to then waking up and being like, no, this is real. Like, it's done. And that's just how it feels, is just a complete weight. And yeah, my family say they all feel that too. It's just absolutely, it's just been amazing.
Hello, and welcome to the Thrive Against Cancer podcast, where we give a voice to the cancer community. My name is Toby Freeman, founder and CEO of the Robin Cancer Trust, cancer advocate, and your host. Every episode, we will be hosting open and honest conversations with people affected by cancer, whether personally, as a family member, clinician, or charities and organisations. We will be talking to the cancer community about the cancer community and all the things that are important to you. Our guest today is 22 years old and was diagnosed with stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma in August 24. She's focused her time on raising awareness of the signs and symptoms of cancer and also showing people that life can still be good whilst you go through treatment. Our guest today is Erin Lavery. Erin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So excited. And in total transparency, we should probably say that we've already done this once.
Yeah, there was a slight mishap, but we're back, ready for round 2.
One thing you can never account for is tech issues. So this is not a podcast sponsored by Zoom, and it doesn't look like it ever will be, but we are so grateful that you've come back. And although I have heard a large part of your journey, many months have passed, and we will start all the way back at the beginning, pre-August 2024. If you'd like to just start there and tell us what life was before you were diagnosed.
Yeah, so I'll take you all right back to October 23. That's kind of when everything started. So, yeah, I used to be super active, just kind of really focused on my work, going out with my friends, usual kind of 20-year-old life. And then, yeah, about October, everything kind of started off. So I had this cough, and it was been there maybe about 3 weeks at this point, 3-4 weeks. And it got to that point, I was, I really hate going to doctors, but I was like, this is not shifting. I need to go. So October 23 was the very first time I went to the doctors with one of the symptoms. So it started off with a cough, and then immediately the doctors kind of thought that it would be asthma. I had asthma as a child, so they were kind of just thinking, right, your asthma's back, and put me on some inhalers. So after they done that, kind of as the months progressed, this cough didn't leave. It would calm down a little bit, but it would never ever go, and it was just kind of this constant up and down. And then I'd noticed a lump in my neck, so this is when I got quite worried, and I went back to the doctors, and straight away the doctor didn't look, didn't touch it, just said, swollen lymph node, you're fine, and sent me off again. So over the next 7-8 months, I was going consistently to doctors with no symptoms. So then it was this fatigue, a really short of breath, night sweats. I was being really sick. I was being sick a lot, just randomly, not a reason for it, just here and there. Dizziness, all these symptoms kept growing. And again, I kept going back and kept going back. And each time, they would treat the symptom that I was coming for. They would treat these symptoms separately. But no one was kind of putting all these pieces together. And especially with the lump, that was something that I did kind of keep mentioning. And every time it was just overlooked, and it never was looked into properly. And then it actually took so I'm a nail technician, and it took one of my clients opening up, and she was only 23 and was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And when she told me it was through a lump in her neck that she got diagnosed, I was like, I need to get back. I need to get back to doctors, and I need to put my foot down this time. So I can't remember the month exactly. I think it was maybe about the May time, and so that would have been 24. That would have been. Went back to doctors, and I said, I really think something's wrong here. And I ended up just saying, like, I think I think it could be thyroid cancer. I told them that there was thyroid cancer in the family, and I told them this, and eventually they referred me on to get lump checked. So I got the lump checked, and then this time they referred me on to the hospital. So this is when things actually started moving, and people started listening to me. So I had my first appointment, and the haematologist there decided, yeah, we should go get this biopsied. And then after I got that biopsy, that's when I got the diagnosis. But yeah, that whole time it was a very mental battle of going to the doctors, feeling very unwell, but being told everything was fine. So I would leave kind of starting to think that I was going a bit crazy or that things were okay. And it was really hard to gauge how I was feeling. And yeah, it was just a really confusing time. So it was really difficult.
It's really hard because not only are you young trying to live your life, you are advocating for your own health, just being you're hitting barriers every time. And if no one's connecting the dots for you, that must have been mentally exhausting within itself anyway. And what a stroke of luck, I suppose, that your client had it. And no one obviously wants anyone to be diagnosed with cancer, but had shared that with you, and that changed everything.
Oh, absolutely. And it's something that then, because of that experience, it made me, when I did get diagnosed, I was like, I need to tell more people about this and I have to share it because if she hadn't have told me about that, I probably wouldn't have been as persistent as I was because I just really, after that moment, I had just a gut feeling of no, this isn't right. And the last appointment I had at the GP, so that was a week before I was diagnosed, I was really upset. I took my mum with me because I just was like, they're not listening to me. And I took my mum and I was crying to the doctor and I kept saying to her, I think everything's connected. I really think all my symptoms are connected. And at that time, I was told that it was just low iron. That was what all my symptoms were, was low iron. And I left that day just feeling completely deflated. And, I really, really was hoping to get some answers then. So, yeah, it was that kind of, I knew from then that it's something that, because that gut feeling was so right, I know there's other people out there that really need to push for more answers. So I just wanted to share that.
100%. Did you feel it was specifically because you were young, you were being battered away?
It's something I've noticed massively, and as I've kind of gone throughout the time in hospital, I've spoke to a lot of people my age with cancer, and the thing that I've noticed the most is the boys that I've spoken to have been diagnosed sometimes with no symptoms or diagnosed very quickly when they went to doctors. But every single girl I've spoke to, it has started off with they've been told it is kind of either like they put things down to like period problems or they put like low iron, especially they'll go dive just basically they just say it's like girl problems. And I think a massive thing as well is when I was going to doctors, I always had my hair done, I had my makeup on. So although I was feeling very unwell, I didn't look that sick. So I think probably to a doctor, they do just think sometimes, like as well, they'll put stuff off and say maybe she's got anxiety or something like that. They think that kind of thing. And I think it's very common for girls, especially, that there's a lot of diagnoses being missed.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something the medical side needs to be focusing on, and something we as charities can be helping with that as well, that messaging.
That's something that, although it was hard what happened with the GP, I don't have much feelings towards it apart from I don't think I can change the NHS or the GP system, but what we can change is people knowing the symptoms and knowing their bodies. So it's that, if you keep pushing, you will get answers eventually. So it's just really listening to yourself and realising when stuff is wrong. And that's something, the more people know the symptoms, the more people that are going to get finding answers.
100%. And you had a significant plethora of symptoms as well. You talked about like some of the main ones for this type of cancer, like fatigue, night sweats. You said obviously a lump.
Yeah.
They would hit, your big threes when you're talking about cancer awareness, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that is normally like persistent pain, or as I said, that cough, that persistent cough, that's not normal to have a cough for pretty much a year. So it's that kind of, I completely get as well how it can be. At first, maybe they would think it was asthma, but again, I think when you look at the bigger picture and think, oh, but she's got this symptom and she's got that symptom, it's when you put that puzzle together that I think it needs to be looked at a lot more than just kind of the one thing, if you get me. Absolutely. But yeah, I had a long list of symptoms.
It's a long list, a long time to get to that hospital. So what happened when you were, the biopsied? What was the journey through that?
So again, it just kind of felt, the second I got up to the hospital, it just felt so much relief. I really felt like everyone I was speaking to was listening to what I was saying and taking things very seriously. So after I got that biopsy, I was told that I would find the results in the next 2 weeks, but I ended up that first week becoming very ill. So another one of my symptoms was these migraines that would heavily affect my vision. So my eyes would become super blurry and I would get these blind spots. And yeah, I basically became bedbound with that. I couldn't get out of my bed. My breathing was so bad. I just really, really felt extremely ill. So we ended up phoning the hospital again. And when we told them what was happening, they said, come straight up. So yeah, it's quite a funny story actually, because we phoned and we said, like, I'm really not well, I'm really not well. And yeah, the oncologist had phoned and said, I think you should just come up tonight. And when he gave me this phone call, it was 7 o'clock on a Friday night. And although I was feeling horrible, it was my friend's birthday. So I was stood there fully ready to go out for her birthday. And, I had a moment of, okay, so I said, right, okay, I'll come straight up. And then I just sat and thought about it. And it was the weirdest feeling because I didn't know I was going to be in hospital or anything, but I just knew that I had to go out that night. So I said no, and I went my night out. And then first thing Saturday morning, I went up to the hospital. And again, although I was feeling so unwell, it never really crossed my mind that it would be cancer. So me and my dad, like, got our things. We went up and thought we'd just be in A,
Yeah.
for a while. So yeah, we had all our things sitting and it just took one x-ray and I got moved to a little side room. And when they were moving me around in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, it's like, I'm getting my own room. This is brilliant. And my dad, that's when he noticed, like, this isn't going to be good news if they're taking us in here. So yeah, it took us into a little side room and just like that, it just said, we can see on your scan there's a massive mass in your chest and we've been able to push. We've got a little bit of your biopsy results back and they've came back for lymphoma. So it literally just went from, like Friday night I was on a night out and Saturday morning I was being diagnosed with cancer. So yeah, it was a huge like kind of reality shift. But as hard as it was to hear, again, that relief just straight away, it was like, okay, like we know what this is, It took so long to get a diagnosis that actually getting it, although it was scary, it just felt like at least we can get to fix it now. And it made me feel a lot better knowing I wasn't being crazy.
Yeah, it's that validation of the previous year that you've gone through, isn't it? As much as that is a world-changing bit of news for you and your family. And yeah, excuse me, a hell of a 12-hour shift from, I imagine, celebrating with your friend on the Friday, having a good night out, and then that's not what anyone wants on a Saturday morning in the hospital, is it? So
Yeah.
you were 21 at this time, is that correct?
Yeah.
So that's a huge bit of news for anyone to be getting. But obviously at 21, how did that hit you? How did that hit the family as well?
At first, yeah, we definitely had that moment of I felt good. And then once the doctor had left the room, it was just me and my dad at this time. And I can remember just turning to my dad and then it just kind of it hit. And we had a wee moment of both being upset. And then it was just that we need to tell my mum, we need to tell my mum, we need to tell my family. And how do you do that? Like, how do you tell your mum that over the phone? So yeah, we phoned her and just told her. She told my sisters, and then they all just came straight up to the hospital. So that first day, everyone was there. It was, what, after I seen everyone, we all just we were joking and laughing and things felt a wee bit more normal. But it was when they left that night to go home and I was by myself and it was terrifying. At that point, we'd just been told it was lymphoma, so I didn't know the stage, I didn't know the kind, we didn't know how anything was looking. So it was just, that was the first time I've ever been in hospital before. Yeah. So even that in itself was a massive adjustment. And I can remember being really overwhelmed, and one of the biggest things was just getting used to see the doctors and nurses just walking on. Yes. So it was kind of like, I've just got this news, I was obviously very upset, trying to go to sleep and I couldn't sleep and I was just breaking my heart crying, and it was just every 2 seconds a nurse would just pop in, and they're so used to it because it's their job obviously, but for me it was massive, just being like, it was a really overwhelming night. But then again, the next day, my granny and granddad came up, the family were all back, and it was just that kind of, although it was really scary having everyone together, it really did comfort me.
Yeah, bringing some sense of normality to that really abnormal situation. Like you say, yeah. I think a lot of people listening can identify with that. You're in that space, you probably want some time to text, switch your brain off, just comprehend it, but you've got beeping, you've got lights, you've got nurse doing ops every 30 minutes, whatever it is when you're trying to sleep. That's the hospital's a very unique space, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So you mentioned you had a mass in your chest. What was the diagnosis? You said you didn't have staging at this point, but as you found out a bit more, and what was the treatment
So
plan?
the next step, they decided that they wanted to take that lump out. So the lump was just in my collarbone here, and they said they had to take that out to get further testing done. So when they took it out, they started to think basically the results had came back kind of half and half. So they thought it was either going to be Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is what it was, or it was going to be this anaplastic large cell. And when they told me that, they basically said, like Hodgkin's is your best option. If it's anaplastic, it's going to be a very long, hard fight, and it's not found in young people very often. So it's really harder to treat. So that was kind of when it was these two, and I had a week of not knowing
Oh,
what one it was. So again, that was just this like horrible feeling of like, do you worry, do you not? But I was very lucky. It came back Hodgkin's, and yeah, as soon as we got that, it was stage 3B. So it's kind of the later stages of three, but not four. And yeah, we just got on with my treatment plan, and then I started chemo straight away.
can I ask, were you in that week spending any time doom Googling, or were you trying
I
your
didn't.
best?
I didn't actually, and I think it's something that I'm glad. I'm definitely glad I didn't search, but I just knew the doctors tell you that as well. They're like, please do not Google anything, and I just knew it wouldn't help. So I stayed away from Google. But at that point, I had noticed that my social media, although I wasn't searching for it, more like cancer videos were coming up, and it was something that I was very kind of in denial of a wee bit at first, and I didn't want to watch anything like that.
Mm.
It was kind of like I knew it was happening, but I didn't want to be in that world yet. And I remember actually having a feeling of so the best thing is what I thought, because I had all these clients. I couldn't message everyone separately, so I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to do a post. I'll just do a big Instagram post, and everyone knows. I don't need to tell them. It's just there. So I can remember putting that post up, and then I had this thought of like, I didn't want my Instagram to start being just cancer. And it was something that I think it's quite weird to think about, that like I wanted to keep that life of like
Mm.
how everything was. And it's funny how different things are now. But yeah, there was a real thing in my head of just thinking I just wanted things to stay the same. So yeah, as much as I didn't really Google anything, I just wanted to keep that moment right there.
Yeah, I think that's understandable when you've got such a big thing ahead of you, and potentially, like, you haven't really comprehended it or dealt with it in your own head as well. It's like, let's just hold that moment, and
Yeah.
things are normal until they get abnormal. So, you said you went straight into chemotherapy. What were you given for? How long were you at hospital for?
Yeah, so I was in hospital for about 3.5 weeks. So that was including, so from the day I was diagnosed, I didn't leave. I stayed right until I started chemo for the first time. So yeah, the way my chemotherapy would work would be 3 days with chemo, and then I would be home for 5 days, and then I would just get one more day of chemo, and then I would be home for 2 weeks. So the 3 days of chemo that I would have at the start, I would always be inpatient for,
Mhm.
but everything else was supposed to be outpatient. So that was kind of how things were pitched to me. And I was told, we're hoping for 3 months of this chemo. Worst case, we'll do 6 months. That was how things looked at the start. And it seemed, like the way they put it across, it all seems really manageable. And I was like, right, okay, like 2 weeks at home, this will be fine. But the way things actually panned out was from the very first cycle of chemo that I had, my body just took such a hit. I got an infection straight away. So I was in A&E, and then I was back in hospital. So it just kind of was something that continued right on through the whole cycles, is that I just kept getting these infections or low blood counts, and I was constantly in and out. So I spent a lot of time in hospital. But those times that I did get home, I absolutely cherished them. So they kept me like pushing on.
That's brilliant. What were those moments at home like? What kept you pushing on?
I think routine. I was so determined that I didn't want this time to be just dark and kind of, I didn't want to look back and think that that was such a horrible time in my life. I was so focused on, I still wanted to have these happy moments and routines. So literally, no matter how sick I was making sure I was getting out of my bed. I was trying to at least go for a shower or stuff like that. I was very focused on trying to do these little things and just noticing little moments. So even if the best thing about that day was just being on the couch with the dogs, I would notice it and I would feel it. And it was just, that was kind of just being very like selective of how I was having all my feelings was kind of like what helped me kind of keep pushing on. But yeah, I think it's just kind of mentality is probably the biggest thing that helped me.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of people spend a lot of time in their life looking for that sort of presence and that gratitude on a daily basis. So to have that, and I say this respectfully, at your age, going through something that big is, yeah, it's an absolutely incredible thing to find within yourself. So,
Yeah.
especially with all that going back into hospital and the roller coaster and the low blood counts and the infections throwing you, from left field constantly, that's really tricky. So,
Yeah.
what about when you were in hospital? Was there anything you did to help with the boredom, the monotony, the all of that?
It's quite to be fair, when I was in, I was sleeping a lot of the time. I was obviously not well, but I think for me, just the biggest thing was just the nurses, the doctors, the people. So I was treated in the Glasgow Beatson, and the staff in there were just my whole family. Actually, nobody could believe how lovely they were. And it kind of became, although I hated going back into hospital and it was scary when I was that sick, that became my comfort place. And when I wasn't well, that's where I wanted to be. That's where I felt the safest. And
Yeah.
having those people, I would go in and they would have a wee hot chocolate ready for me. And it was that kind of, again, like those little times that they just helped kind of keep me pushing on. And we're really lucky that in the Beatson there's a recreational room. So it's basically got like a pool table, a Xbox, telly, all these wee bits and bobs. So if you do have that wee bit more energy, there's a space you can go to with your family that it doesn't feel like a hospital. So that definitely kept me entertained. But yeah, it was just kind of, when I was in there, it was mainly just slowing down and watching movies, being comfy. But again, having like my family up visiting and stuff like that, just that helped when I was in there.
That makes all the difference. Yes, we hear a lot from partners in the charity world how amazing the Beatson are as an organisation. But having that space, as you said, so important that you can go. And again, it's just some semblance of normality, isn't it? If you want to go and watch some TV, want to be somewhere that doesn't feel medicinal, maybe there's another young person there that you can just be
Yeah.
around. That's so important to that, as well as the medical team, like looking after you with the hot chocolate and stuff. They're just
Yeah.
make all the difference.
Absolutely.
So you had quite a time with chemo as well, and you had lots of radiotherapy as well. I don't want to go through your story for you, but yeah, please tell us what you've been through.
Yeah, so we ended up, so it was, we done the 3 months of chemo and I got a scan and things were looking really good. So they said, right, we're gonna do we're gonna do two more chemos and we think this will be it. So I done the two more and then we got a scan and it wasn't clear yet. So they said, right, we're gonna go and we'll do this last cycle of chemo and we really think this will be it this time. We really think this will be it. Done the last cycle and then unfortunately it hadn't, not only had it not shrunk, but it had grown again. So getting that result was literally like just like a ton of bricks. Before then, everything had been pushing on, and although I had to do more, it was kind of like, but things are still reducing. There was this hope, and then when I had that last cycle of chemo, that was the sickest I'd ever been. It was the hardest thing I'd ever been through, and knowing that I'd been through that and it still hadn't shrunk was just like, it was absolutely soul crushing. So that was the hardest thing I think I had to go through, and it was a really difficult time. As so, when I'm in the hospital, you do meet a lot of people, and you become so close with the friends that you make. And I'd actually lost one of my friends the week before, so I was in patient hospital with her and she passed away. I got home and then I went and got a scan and found out that my cancer had grown and I was going to need more treatment. So it was just an incredibly difficult time, and it just felt, everything just felt so hard. But the doctors pick you back up and we start thinking about treatment plans. So at first they were saying, we don't think radio is going to be an option here and we're going to need to do more chemo. So this would involve 6 months more chemotherapy and then a stem cell transplant. And hearing that was just like, I think at the start, obviously I'd been told that obviously like 6 months worst case. So when it got past that 6 months, it was like, what do you mean I need to do more? But yeah, at this point, they then gave me a choice of, they said, if we do this chemo, then you're going to be completely infertile. So it was, you need to pick, are we going to delay the chemo and do fertility preservation, or are we just going to get going on with your treatment? So making a decision like that at 21 is just, you can't even, like, where do you even start making a decision like that? So I was lucky enough that I got to go to a fertility specialist, and they done some tests, and basically they came back and said to me that actually we didn't have an option here, and it would take too long to do a preservation treatment. So I was just going to get a move on with my treatment. And although it was really hard to hear, it actually helped because I just couldn't have made the decision like that. I was finding it so difficult. So just that being taken out of my hands actually did help me out. But then I was actually lucky enough that then my oncologist came back to me and said, radio is now going to be an option. So again, it was this decision of, do you want to do radiotherapy or do you want to do chemotherapy? Both have these horrible side effects, and you know, like how do you make a choice? So I just decided to go for the radio. It was going to be the quickest treatment and the, what would you say, kind of less intense on my body. So I decided that's what I wanted, and I went for it. I done 18 rounds of radiotherapy treatment. And then after that, I was told that I had to wait 3 months for another scan. Because of the radiotherapy, they need to really let your system calm back down before they scan again. And I found that so difficult. A lot of people would think, but you're not doing treatment. But it's that waiting and the not knowing is the hardest bit about cancer treatment. Once you're stuck in things, it's easy to get going, but it's the in between points that are so incredibly difficult. So, yeah, that 3 months was really tough.
And I bet that was doubly as tough because you'd already had your goalposts move so much. So you build up for this 6 case worst case. You can go, I understand what 6 case looks like. And then it's this option, this option, this option. And then it's wait. And obviously, I imagine your anxiety is super high because you were expecting no growth on the previous and it grew. So that must be so hard. And I mean, I try and make a list while we're going along, but during this, you've had, your infertility brought into question at this point. Can you, can't you? You've had to deal with that as a question. You've had to deal with your treatment options. You've also lost a friend and you have cancer. Like, any of these things are enough to stop anyone in their track for as long as they need. And you're just, the cancer journey doesn't stop, does it? Like you say, it's
Yeah.
when you're in, it just keeps moving. It's the quiet times.
Yeah, and it is. That was the thing that I found most difficult with the loss, and I'd actually lost another friend in the time of making that decision. So it was that kind of, when I was doing my treatment, I was able to get my head stuck in it, and I was very focused on it. But when I wasn't, it was those feelings of the grief, and just grief in my old life, grief in my friends, and just, yeah, grieving even the fact that I'm in this position, having to deal with these feelings was just massive. So it was those points that then I'm waiting on this scan, and exactly these posts have been moved that I had no clue what the scan was going to look like. And it was like, is it going to be another 6 months? Am I going to need to do this stem cell transplant after this? So it was a complete, just that time was horrible. The waiting was absolutely horrible.
And how was the radiotherapy? Was it as intense as the chemo, or was it just different in,
It was an extremely different treatment, and I actually found it really isolating. I think when you're doing chemotherapy, especially the way I was inpatient so much of the time that you get such a bond with all your doctors and nurses, and you feel really part of this kind of community and family. Whereas with the radiotherapy, as much as the nurses are lovely, you're only in for 15, 20 minutes. And yeah, it's every day, but it's such a kind of transactional in and out that the support just didn't feel quite the same. And, all my family were back at work, so I was driving up every day, and a massive side effect of the radiotherapy is fatigue. So it really just drains you, and just, it makes things really hard to keep that kind of fire and like positivity going, because it is just so draining, that part. So that was just really hard in a different way, for sure.
Absolutely. And did you had these 3 months waiting? Was that literally recovering? Was that you were just absolutely wiped? You just felt your body, or were there moments where you could escape the cancer treatment for a bit?
The first month was really, I was still just so tired and just kind of really trying to give myself time. And then it began this, I'd spoke to my radiologist, and she said, you want to get in the best shape you can for this scan. So best result is you're going to get a good scan, but worst result, you need to try and prepare your body for the next line of treatment. So yeah, it was just, I was eating the healthiest I've ever eaten in my life. I was doing these juices. I was so focused, but that gave me something to focus on. It actually helped because it was something, I was then trying to exercise, and it was really starting to push myself, but in a way that helped my mental health so much.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Even though you're hearing you might get more treatment, having something positive to focus on outweighs that. That gives you something to do.
And it
That's
made me feel like I was doing something. And when you're receiving treatment, it's just kind of you just give yourself to the medicine and that's that. But this really made me feel like I was doing something that was helping this, and it really helped ease my mind about that scan for sure.
that's brilliant. Any tips and tricks for people listening that might be in a similar position? What was your way into exercising a bit more and eating healthy?
I would say take it slow, but I do the absolute opposite. You should be taking it slow, but I'm always 0 to 100. So I will do something, be white for a couple of days, and then I'll do it again. But it was that just kind of keeping that like fire and just that momentum of doing it. And yeah, that was absolutely the best thing I've ever done was that health eating, just doing research and stuff like that. It does get boring when you're not working and you've not got like kind of at the start, obviously there's so many people around, but when everyone starts to go back to work, it does get quite isolating. So yeah, doing all these things really gave me something that kind of made the time go past. And yeah, I say that's the best thing is keeping routine and looking into all the things you can do to make yourself as healthy as possible.
Brilliant. And how was the days leading up to this scan? Obviously, this is a huge thing that you've got looming. How are you building up to that?
Yeah, it was just definitely trying to kind of keep my mind off it, stay as busy as possible. But there's just always going to be that underlying. And I think my whole family feels it, and my emotions would literally be like that. I was really, really difficult to deal with, probably, because it is. It's just so hard when you've got so much going on in your head. And there was kind of moments of being like, I'd be thinking really positive, and then I think it was really hard at that point as well because I'd been through so much treatment. I had so much side effects that I couldn't tell if these feelings I was feeling was symptoms or side effects. So normally I would have a really good gauge of what the scans were going to look like, but this one was just a complete, I didn't have a Scooby. So yeah, it was really just try to get it done and then get these results out of the way for sure.
Real. And I suppose the only question left to ask is how did the scan results come back?
Yeah, so I basically, again, I'm the most impatient person in the world. So I knew that the soonest I would get these results would have been the Friday. So I'd messaged my nurse on the Thursday and I said, because I know they have a meeting on the Thursday. So I was like, any idea if you're bringing me up tomorrow? And he'd actually phoned me and he said, look, don't want to keep you waiting. Dr. Hooney's going to give you a phone tonight. Are you home? And I wasn't home. I was actually out at a photo shoot, but I was like, yeah, I'm home. I'm home because I didn't think they'd give me them if I wasn't home. So I was like, yeah, it's fine, I'm home. And then, yeah, so my oncologist had phoned me, and I actually had one of the other models in my car at the time. And I'd literally just parked up and was like, can you walk the rest of the way? She got out of the car. And I was like, right, okay, just tell me, just tell me. And yeah, he just went, we'll just get straight to it. It was a completely clear scan and you're cancer free. So yeah, that feeling was just, I couldn't get my head around it. Obviously, it's something you pay for the whole way through, but I was like silent, dead silent. And he was like, like full metabolic, but it's all gone, it's all gone. And I was just like, so that's it. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, That's it done. Yeah, that's it done. And it just, like I felt it and I knew what it was, but I couldn't I just couldn't have that like release yet. But yeah, it was such an amazing phone call to get. And then I had to go back in and finish this photo shoot. But I was like, I didn't want to tell them before I told my family. So I had to go in and be like, oh, I don't know yet. And then I was sitting there like for trying not to give it away. But yeah, it was that drive home. I was stuck in traffic for like an hour, and that was when everything was just going through my head, everything I'd been through, the whole thing. And it was just a surge of emotions. It just felt so surreal, but I'm really glad that I got to tell my family it, and it was so nice being able to tell everyone.
That's incredible. We were talking before the podcast that we were sitting on this amazing bombshell, and I'm so glad we've got to talk about this, the whole journey, because this is quite recent as well, isn't it, to us coming on. And I see you've been celebrating. I've seen lots of stuff on social media. It seems like your friends and family have done their utmost to do everything to celebrate this moment with you, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's been so special, and it was that even from like a social media point of view as well, being able to share that because there's been so many people that have been following all throughout, and it was every time obviously I'm coming on with a bit of bad news, a bit more bad news, so being able to finally give this good news, I feel like they all just felt it too. So just all round, that I could not believe the amount of support I got, and yeah, like the message, our house was literally like a flower shop, like it's just we were literally in just such a little bubble. It was just amazing.
That's so amazing. So happy for you and your loved ones, obviously. Um, yeah, just I think it's really interesting you said that moment where it was just like, oh, is that it? Because it's so odd, isn't it? It's this
Yeah.
life altering in a good way, but it's just a phone call and it's just a doctor saying something, a few words, and you're like, oh, the weight of the world is off me now, and
Yeah.
I can deal with all these things maybe that's been going on. That must be.
Yeah, that was really how it felt, was just like the weight being lifted. Like I had this feeling, and it was just, for literally the day I was diagnosed, every single morning when I woke up, I would have just like a couple minutes of being like we're still doing this. Like this is real. And it was just that complete flip to then waking up and being like, no, this is real. Like it's done. And that's just how it feels, is just a complete weight. And yeah, my family say they all feel that too. It's just absolutely, it's just been amazing.
Absolutely incredible. What does the future hold, Erin? What's you're in the middle of a photo shoot. Hopefully it was a smiley one. I was thinking, God, if it was a really serious photo shoot and you're just smirking. Like,
Yeah, it was actually for a wig brand that I was doing it for. So yeah, it was really fun just getting to do stuff like that. Me and my dad were speaking about like the opportunities, although obviously it's been a horrible situation. My life is just completely different now in so many ways that yeah, I think when I was in my treatment, I think you get kind of two types of people. Some people they just like to think about when this is done, I'm doing this. When this is done, they really think about the future and they don't really, they'd like to just not think about the now. Whereas I was just so, I never thought at all about the day I was going to be cancer free. It was just completely, I was so deep in it.
mm,
But yeah, when I actually got that, it was that kind of, I didn't even know what I wanted to do to celebrate because it wasn't something that I'd thought about. So yeah, it was just really crazy. But yeah, for now, obviously, I'm like, okay, I'm starting thinking about maybe going back to work and things like that. But the first kind of stuff that I want to do is just get as healthy as I possibly can. I think it's just that's such a privilege being able to do that, and I'm excited to get my strength back and start pushing things and not have to worry about what's going on inside. So yeah, just taking control back in that sense I'm excited for, but who knows what the future holds.
absolutely. And the future is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. I think I'd like to sit in this moment and if you're right, share with what you and your friends have been doing to celebrate, because there are lots of things on your social media. What are some of the joy that they brought?
So the very first, so obviously I came home, I told my family, and then I was like, right, let's go and surprise all my friends. So basically everyone that was home, we drove to their houses, chat the door, and then I just told them. So having that moment was just so special. So yeah, I got to tell a good lot of them in person, then it was just FaceTime everyone, telling family, all that. And then yeah, we went out for dinner. I've been out for so many steak dinners because that's been my thing throughout. It was
Nice.
after like a tough chemo, I'd be like, right,
Yeah.
well, I'm going for a steak. So getting that final like celebration steak was great. So yeah, we've been for a lot of dinners, and then yeah, I had a night out with all my friends. It was last week, 2 weeks ago. So yeah, they'd made these wee party hats and like Erin's
Sweet.
cancer free stuff like that. It was just they went absolutely above and beyond, and yeah, it's literally just like those moments are also good, but it's even just being relaxed with
Mm,
everyone now. It's such a literally just doing nothing feels good when you're cancer free. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm just enjoying that as well.
I love that. I love like you say, the weight's been gone. It brings that feeling of contentness, which I can imagine for a serious amount of time you haven't had that anxiety, that pressure, that worry. Just being able to sit and be content must feel like the most perfect thing in the world. But
Yeah.
also, I do love the full circle moments of, one of the many worst parts of a cancer diagnosis, that initial having to relive that diagnosis, telling everyone and calling your friends, you're living that grief with them, but you've had the flip side, and it's literally on social media for the world to see, which I think is beautiful, of you telling your friends, going and having the antithesis, the joy moments of being able to go and individually tell them, and the fact that you went for a night out and got told you were cancer, and then you got told you're cancer free and gone on a night out. I just think
actually, like, didn't even plan it, but we ended up going to the same place.
Amazing.
So it was literally full circle, like absolutely insane.
That's what a lovely thing. People can literally find this online, can't they? These joyous moments, if that's something they want to share in. But one thing we haven't really talked about is your social media and how that has helped you navigate this journey. You've obviously shared these very personal experiences with us, but you've been sharing them with a wider audience. And I suppose, if it's all right, maybe just dive into what that's brought you and what that's meant to you and the community and the connectivity and how that's helped you.
Yeah, it was just massive, and it wasn't something that I planned at the start. It literally all started with basically when I got told I was doing this chemo. I'd asked the doctor, I said, is my hair going to come out? They said, yep, it's definitely coming out. So I straight away was like, well, I'm shaving it off first. So before I'd even done a round of chemo, I was like, the hair's coming off. And I was like, and I'm going to donate it. So I donated it to the Little Princess Trust, and I'd done a fundraiser for them. So I videoed it, and I was like, I'll post this as a fundraiser, that'll be that. And when I posted that video, it just went completely viral, and everyone just loved how upbeat I was when I was doing this video, because I wasn't sad. It was very much like, no, I'm doing this, not the chemo. So that video just went crazy, and then I just got so many followers from it, and it was people that they wanted to check in, they wanted to see how the chemo was going, they wanted to know what was happening. So then I kind of started posting, right, I knew I wanted to raise awareness for obviously getting checked and the symptoms, so I'd done a couple of videos on that, and again, people just really were interested in the story. So the more questions they asked, the more stuff I posted, and it did just become the whole way through everything I was getting. And I learned that, so my sister is, she's very, if she was getting something done, she needs to know step by step exactly what happens, exactly what they're doing. And I thought there's probably other people out there like that. So I said, I can post videos like that. So when I'm talking about getting a pick line, I'll say, so you go in and they'll say this to you, and then they'll do this, and then they'll do that. And I was able to explain things in a way that maybe somebody could watch that before they go in, and it will help ease their mind a little. And the same with chemo. I think such a natural thing is when you get told you're going to receive a treatment like that, you're going to be sick, but you can't wrap your head around how sick. You can't imagine what it's going to be like. So someone can literally go on that's getting escalated BCOP that I can see every day that I was going through, and how sick I was and exactly how I was feeling, to give them that idea of what it's going to look like and what it's going to be like. So I just kept posting, and the more I started posting, the more people that were getting involved, and it literally became like I could not believe how many strangers were genuinely invested and just wanted me to do well and cared for me. Like, if I had posted in a couple of days, I would get all these messages of people being like, are you okay? How are you feeling? And they really, really cared, and it was such a comforting thing, and it gave me that. That's how I met most of my cancer friends, where they'd see my videos, reach out, and then we just get talking, and that was it. So the people that I've met through it has just been insane, but it did give me that thing to focus on. And the time, you said obviously it does get boring, it does, so it was always just I'll post a wee video and I'll do a wee update, and it just really gave me something that just helped push me through the whole way.
Brilliant. I love that. It's sort of, social media gets a bad rap, but there are some amazing people out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wanting, and like you say, fully invested in it. I bet the response from those wonderful strangers has been absolutely joyous as well, sharing in your...
It's been an all round, but I think when I first kind of was posting the videos, it was more in my head just for cancer patients, and so people can learn, but it really became then family of cancer patients that wanted to know, because I am so open and I really do share everything that kind of goes on in my head. It gave them that little insight that maybe if they feel uncomfortable asking someone they love or whatever, it gave them that knowledge without having to talk about it. So it just kind of, I was amazed at how many people it resonated with, and I think a lot of people just liked kind of how upbeat I was throughout it. So that definitely, it helped too.
Love it. Is it something you're planning on carrying on talking about? Like, cancer it's you're in remission. That's amazing, but you will have scans. You'll have regular check-ins. Is this something you're still going to carry on talking about?
Absolutely. I think even myself being naive, I didn't realise that, I think for a lot of people who think when you're cancer free, like it's
Mhm.
done, you're better. But there is so much more to it. And it's just even that mental side of just beginning to process what's just happened. And there's, yeah, exactly the recovery bit I want to document then and kind of show people and just, yeah, continue to just raise as much awareness as I can. So I'll always post about it. And yeah, as I said, the Beats and Charity have just been amazing, like doing work for them, stuff like that. Like, I just really want to. I'll stay in the cancer world, but just from a distance. I think it's
Yes,
good.
yes, please. Do you find it kind of therapeutic, the talking on screen? Is there something in the act of actually saying it out loud and explaining and knowing that you're helping people as well? Does that do something in those, for you in those moments?
Yeah, totally. I would always have, I'd get the news and I would take maybe like a day and
Mm.
kind of have my wee like, right, okay, and wrap my head around what was happening, how I was feeling. And then yeah, it was just kind of my next thought would be like, right, okay, I'm gonna post about it. And it was, especially with the fertility stuff, it was then
Mm.
what I was learning, then explaining that back to someone. I think that did help me process then, it's like thinking about it again. And
Yes.
yeah, it was basically me just offloading, like talking to the camera. And yeah, just knowing then it was that reassurance. Then people would comment and be like, oh, I feel like this too, stuff like that. It was just all round like a kind of mutually beneficial thing. But I'd say that definitely did help me for sure.
Yeah, I think that might be. I just asked that because I thought there might be people out there that are going through something and think, oh, I don't have a voice, I don't have anything interesting to share. But actually, the act of sharing it can be therapeutic. But then people connecting with it, and they will, is again such an important thing that you need in those moments, especially when cancer can seem really tough. So,
Yeah, I think it's actually even see now that I've got that to look back on. Like I
mm,
literally can look and see exactly what life was like at that point and literally exactly even just for myself to have that. But I think there are definitely is kind of two types of people because like some people are like, no, I'm never posting that, but they like watching it, they like reading stuff. So yeah, there's always gonna be people posting and people watching. So yeah, if you want to do it, I'd say do it.
yeah, and if you don't want to do it on camera, maybe just a journal, for your own.
Yeah.
Because we've had a few guests saying actually it's a great journal for me to know what happened during that period. So
Yeah, my Instagram's like words for sure. I'll write exactly how I'm feeling, and
yeah,
then my TikTok's like me just chatting.
something for everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned the Beatson, amazing charity, and you've mentioned Little Princess Trust. Is there any other organisations or charities or even other influencers and people that you've connected with that you want to point people in the direction of? Because you never know who's listening.
I'd say Macmillan are another great one. I really love the work that they do. And then I'm actually going to partake in the Race for Life this year. So cancer
Okay.
research. We done that so my granny had a brain tumour when I was 10 and she passed away from that. And yeah, as a family, we all done the Race for Life together. And that was such a lovely kind of, so that charity is another really special one to me. But there's just so many people on TikTok and again, like the friends that I've made through it has just been so special. So I would say if you're someone going through it, look for people that you can connect with and reach out because that's something that I've learned that pretty much everyone and especially young people in the cancer community are always so helpful and so again like that kind of caring, like they really do care how you're getting on and they'll help you in any way that they can. So reach out if there's someone that you think can help you.
Amazing. And I would say as an organisation as well, sometimes we have uh, a sort of default to go to websites and forums, which of course there's time and place, but actually a lot of these bigger organisations do reach out to people such as yourself to create content. So it's a great way of finding people that might be you might want to follow on social media is actually through these organisations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So wonderful, Erin. Thank you so much. I'm so excited that we've been able to share for a moment in your joy and in your news. And I think we kept it under wraps for the most of the podcast. So it was a brilliant reveal. What we do with all our guests, if it's okay, is ask 5 questions, which you've probably answered before because we've done this podcast. So let's.
All the questions.
That's fine because no one will ever see the first one because the audio wasn't working. So we will dive in if that's all right.
Sure.
What advice would you give to someone who's worried they might have cancer?
I would say if you have symptoms that you're worried about, then go to the GP, and if they don't, what they're telling you isn't resonating, you think that could be it, then just keep going. Keep asking questions. If there's something that you think it is, speak to them about it, ask them about it. I think sometimes with GPs, they'll just kind of do the first line of, if you've got a cough, then they'll give you cough syrup, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you genuinely think I've got a cough because this is the problem, then ask them and just keep going until you feel better. And as I said, knowing the symptoms is the best thing you can do. So definitely.
Absolutely. And something you said earlier as well, which was you know your body best, which that's the key. You got to advocate for yourself, but the more informed you are, the better decisions could be made. So I think that's great advice. What was the most impactful thing someone did for you after your diagnosis?
I think my family mainly, they learned very quickly, and I think a lot of the time they thought less about how they were feeling, what they wanted, and just what I needed. So they were very good at listening to, if I was in hospital for that day and I didn't want them to come up, they wouldn't come up. Even if they were dying to see me, they would give me that time and they allowed me to be selfish in that moment. And I think it's so incredibly difficult to be a loved one of someone with cancer and having that lack of control and just having to watch. But they really all took that into the ring and they were so able to, although they did speak to me about how they were feeling, they were really good at just giving me my time and letting me feel a certain way and coming in when I needed them. So yeah, I'd say that was the most like selfless and just, it really did, it helped.
That's incredible advice for caregivers. Actually, I think that's really important for people to take on board. Being respectful of the person, you are the focal point, right? And steak
Yeah, I think,
dinners, obviously, Erin. Just steak dinners whenever you want them. So
yeah, exactly. Let me just get a state down at the click of my fingers. That's top of the list, actually.
love it. Thank you. Hopefully, this next one you don't have anything, but we always ask, what's the worst thing someone has said to you about having cancer?
Um, yeah, I don't think I've really got one, to be honest. I think from what I've learned through other cancer patients, is there is a massive kind of insecurity around having cancer, especially when it comes to the hair loss.
Mm.
Whereas for me, I really found it kind of an empowering thing where maybe there was people that would look at me funny or have funny things to say about things, but in my head I was just so amazed at the fact my body was fighting a disease like this that I actually didn't care. I was getting my bald head out and no matter how I looked, it just was something that I was like, no, I'm going through a hard time and I'm not going to try and hide that. So, yeah, there maybe was things, but there's nothing that sticks out in my head.
Excellent. What advice would you give to someone recently diagnosed with cancer?
I would say just try and slow down. I know it's so hard to bring yourself back to that kind of like everything just feels like a million miles an hour, but just relaxing and like really. Can I start that question again?
I know that's absolutely fine. What
Sorry.
advice would you? Oh, sorry. Oh, what advice would you give to someone recently diagnosed with cancer?
I think just making sure and being very in tune of what you need and thinking a wee bit less about other people, just really thinking about what's going to help you in that moment and what you need and what's going to be best for you. And yeah, just tell people how you're feeling for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. I think when you're going through it, it's not selfish to be selfish. That's self care, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important that you take that time. And although you can be worried about your family, I think being open with them, that's how you're feeling, and letting them do the same is such a bonding experience. And I think just the more everyone talks about their mental health, the better. So just exactly if you need those down days, tell people that you need them.
Brilliant. Brilliant advice. And lastly, what's the biggest lesson you've learnt from having cancer?
I think the biggest lesson would just be how important it is to be kind. You never know what people are going through, and I think that was something I thought about majorly at the start, was the fact that my mum and dad were having to go to work and people would see them and not know that
Mm,
their daughter had cancer. I think the person with cancer, you can see it. But yeah, there's so many people out in the world that are going through extremely difficult things and you just don't know it. So just showing that wee bit of kindness just goes such a long way. And the people that have shown kindness to me throughout this has just made the experience that so much easier. So yeah, it's really important.
Love that. What a brilliant way to end a brilliant podcast. I always try and surmise at the end, Erin. I've just written a random bunch of words, but hopefully they resonate with you because these are the notes I've been taking. I've got taking control is empowering, gratitude and being present as much as you can, finding the joy, being kind, and driving your purpose. And
Yeah, they all sound good.
I think that's I hopefully that in some small way has summed up what I think people will be thinking when they listen to your podcast. But Erin, you've gone through so much and you've done it with that joy, and you share so openly, so eloquently, and so brilliantly. I'm just so grateful that you've been here today. I'm so grateful that we've got the whole story from beginning to end.
The ending, yeah.
Absolutely. And I cannot wait to share in whatever joy you bring to the world moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening, and thank you to our amazing supporters and funders who make this podcast happen. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a review and follow us on social media at Thrive Against Cancer. And be sure to check out our other episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. If you want to help support our mission to give a voice to the cancer community, please contact us or visit our website to learn more at thriveagainstcancer.co.uk.